Hello YouTube vintage stereo collectors. Now this is one you don't see very often. You see lots of stuff floating around still from the 80s and 90s. This is a 1965 Nikko TRM-40 and this is the early edition. It has the silver faceplate and it's a solid aluminum plate. It's actually thick enough and solid enough to hammer a nail in once you have it off. Solid machined aluminum knobs. Very smooth, beautiful craftsmanship. This thing certainly has a lot of metal in it, but it is an interesting construction. There's so many little boards and I can put it modules. I don't think they would have called them back then, but if you look at the construction of it, it has interstage transformers between the preamp and the outputs. That's how it divides up the waveform into positive going, negative going pulses for the push-pull amplifier. Separate volume controls, hand wired, separate switches, all hand wired. Just going around it here. A board for the tone preamp, a board for the preamp. Over here you've got a board for the diodes, the power supply. And I'm about halfway through it. This one is all original parts. The old Elma caps. There's several of them. I've used terminal strips. The new caps are so much smaller than these 1960s ones. But here's the interesting thing. They don't make them like this anymore. I mean, this thing is almost, well, it's 55 years old. And it still worked. Not very well. A lot of crackling, popping. You know, this has to do with capacitors. All the original germanium transistors are still there. And I'm just going to stand it up. It's heavier, it's small, but it's quite heavy. I'm just going to always put them on something so I can slide them around. But you'll see here, look at the Motorola 2AD149 germanium output transistors. Originals. Later versions of this, the TRM-40A, TRM-40LA, and the B, actually they have different Japanese. Some I've seen them with Hitachi transistors. I've seen them with, I believe they're Sankens. But this earlier version has Motorola American transistors, and they were king of the hill for quite a while. Anyway, this one, I've done a few of these. They have a really warm tube-like sound. They perform very nicely when they're done. So I'll do a follow-up on this later. Thanks for watching and listening.